Good evening. This is Wednesday, October 29th, 6 days until the 2008 presidential election. With that 30-minute advertisement from Senator Obama just ended its placement, making this our third story on the countdown tonight. Our early edition, the potential impact of the infomercial. We'll also return at 10 p.m. Eastern for a second live full-hour edition of the program. This was the first time in 16 years that a presidential candidate had aired a prolonged campaign commercial in prime time, 7 networks at once, at a cost to the Obama campaign estimated between $3.5 and $5 million. Let's call in my colleague, the host of Hardball, Chris Matthews, who watched alongside with the rest of us. Chris, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
If you tuned in maybe grudgingly to this thing, you were told this was the Obama speech, the Obama infomercial purchase, the Obama show, would you have been surprised? Would you have been sucked in? How did it work?
Well, I thought it was Hollywood. It was romance. It was realism. The technical quality of it, the production values were perfect. The way they timed going to live, the biographical material, but most important, the connection with the average person and the economic turmoil we face right now, I thought was fabulous. Of course, there we see the setting, which is very much like an Oval Office setting, showing that he's comfortable, and we should be comfortable and will be with him in such a setting. I thought everything was just right. I thought the most important part of it, I thought, was the biographical, showing him talking about his mom and talking about him taking his chance in history and not wanting to miss it, having seen his mother die at a young age. And it was very human. I think you'd have to be a tough customer not to be touched by it.
Did that, you mentioned what that setting looks like, that almost White House, almost a faux White House. Did that work? Was it too risky? Is he going to get pummeled for that? Because the whole McCain argument against this was, he's already giving a presidential address. Clearly this was not a presidential address, and yet the format made it look a little bit kind of like reminiscent of the White House. Well,
just let me say what I said earlier on my program. Ask the McCain people if they'd like 8:30.
Yes.
I think for all the sour apples we're getting from them, they wish they had the second half hour this hour, not you. And so don't kid yourself. This is valuable material. This is real estate of the highest order. And their location is, here we are in prime time, the Wednesday before the election, one of the most busiest hours on television and most watched. And I tell you, again, I go back to the production values. I think it's very hard to turn away from a well-produced television program.
By the way, the McCain people always would rather have themselves on than me for this half an hour, but that's another story for another time.
For two reasons, them and you.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, you mentioned. I thought you were absolutely right on the connections to his own father and mother. The other things that struck me were 2 images. One of that woman, Juanita Stewart was her name, straightening out her arthritic fingers, which was extraordinary by itself. Yeah. And then a little prefacing, he's talking about, or his wife is talking about reading to his daughter, his reading to his daughter, and then that Ford employee read to the daughter. There was a real studious effort to hook people together with Obama through that kind of he does it, you do it thing, correct?
Yeah, it's so, I've always said this to people who are tough on the racial front, and everybody grows up in their own way, and I'm not passing moral judgment on anybody, and I know we all grew up in this country, which is so, bothered by race, and we just all are to different degrees, and just think about it if you're examining your conscience. What do you want black people to do? You want them to grow up well, raise their kids well, pay attention to their kids, raise them well, accept your responsibility as a parent, do everything right. This family has done everything you've asked them to do. What more do you want before you're going to vote for a black guy? What more do you want? The guy's done everything. He's worked his butt off. He's been a good father, a good citizen. He's paid attention to his country. He's devoted his life to his own community back in the south side of Chicago. He's taught people how to be, how to behave. He's done everything right. Give the guy a break and at least think about voting for him. I mean, everybody has to make up their own minds about a lot of issues in this campaign, but if anybody votes against him because of his behavior or his family life, they're not being fair here. I think he exemplifies this country, and not just in his community, all of us. And I'll have to tell you something where I thought it was very important tonight. I'll say I said this before, and I don't know if they were paying attention to me, probably not, but I think it's very important to understand the way the average guy in this country thinks, white or black or whatever. The average guy takes tremendous pride, and that's the vote that's really up for grabs here, the white guy, if you will, takes tremendous pride in being a provider to his family. And in rough times or good times, he comes home with the with the bacon, and he shares that responsibility, of course, with his wife and the mother of the family. And he brings it home, and he takes great pride that he can do it. He can sweat it out. He can do the 2 jobs. He can work the long shift. He can drive the truck the extra couple days. He can do it, and he comes home with the pride of the father who provides. It's very important that the government not try to do that job because it can't do that job. If it tried a million years, it couldn't do the job of being a father. The government can't be a father or a mother. But what it can do is make life a little more doable in terms of health care, in terms of getting people job opportunities, in terms of perhaps education for the kids. But most importantly, staying the hell out of their life in terms of not too many taxes. And I think it's very important that he has to keep saying to that average family out there, I'm on your side. I'm not coming with a big tax load. I'm going to put those taxes on the people at the top who can more afford them. I'm going to give you a break. I'm going to help you a little bit, but I'm not going to get in your way with taxes. I think it's very important to connect with that pride of the provider. And I think he began to do it tonight, maybe a little late, but I think it's very important. It's not about him, this election. It's about them. It's about fathers and mothers raising families in difficult times. That's what this election's about. And I thought he connected a bit there. I thought he did.
And clearly the undertone of that half hour was exactly as you point out, fathers and mothers and kids. Chris Matthews, as always, thanks for the extra time, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Keith.